Hello everyone who's eat and sleep and play with 3D printer. Back with me again, Dennis Wang, and today we are going to make multiple exposure finder using Uvtools. But first, check if the printer is compatible with the software. If your printer is not on the list, you could test if your printer is compatible by following this guide. Now, open the slicer and set according to the printer that you are going to use. I'm using Sonic Mini 4K. Load the file. I'm going to load ameratown. And for the print settings, you only need to set the speed, distance, and light of delay. And for the rest, you could adjust in Uvtools. Now slice it and save as ameratown. Okay, back and then open Uvtools, then load the file. It will automatically detect your printer. Now we are going to make the exposure finder. So you could generate two kinds of exposure finder. The first is the preset exposure time finder from Uvtools, and the second one is the model that you slice. It doesn't have to be ameratown. You could use any kind of model that you want to use. Now let's make the first exposure time finder using Uvtools model. Okay, this is the display width and height is the dimension of your printer build size. This is the layer height. Notice the difference here. If you set it to 40, it change. Okay, and for example, I'm going to use 0.05. The bottom exposure I'm going to set as 30. Top and bottom margin, leave it as 5. Part margin, I suggest use at least 2 millimeters. Bottom layers, I usually use 3. Normal exposure, this is the starting of the exposure that you want. For this video example, I'm going to use 1.5. Leave the left and right margin. Now we look at object configuration for this. You could leave the settings for this object configuration, or if you're curious and you want to tinker, I'm going to give a quick explanation. This is the base height of the object. I'm using 0.3. The feature height is the details of the object. I'm going to use 0.6. Make it as thin as possible to save print times. Printer margin here, I'm going to set as 1. Staircase is this stair detail here. I'm going to set is as 60. Positive pin or holes, I'm not using it, but feel free to test it. Zebra bars is this one. Uncheck and check again. The bar length I'm going to set as 3. You could input additional bars if you want. I'm going to put 10, 20, and 30. See the additional bars here. And then for the text, you could change the font. Text scale is the size of the text. I'm going to use 2. Text thickness, leave it be as 2 pixels. And you can change the text. I'm going to put this text here. This is the text that I'm going to generate. Feel free to change the text. Okay, now we move on to the bullseye. Bullseye is this object. I will be change this to 180, 10, and 330, 30. This is to sorry. This is easier for you to spot the print details, and this is the counter triangles. Now let's look at this multiple exposure, enable it, and for this option here, it doesn't work with all printers, but feel free to check it or not. Normal step is the increments of the exposure. For this example, I'm going to set as 0.2, sorry, I mean 0.25, and I want to generate 8 models. Why I put 7? Don't forget to count the original model. So this is what's going to show up, 0.05, and the second increment. Okay, you could save the settings. This is my previous settings. So if you want to make another one, you don't have to change the configuration again. Now click the exposure time finder. Now we have our first multiple exposure time finder. This is the part margin. See the gap between part. This is important to have less suction during your printing. We set 3 bottom layers, 1, 2, and 3. Now see the exposure time start to change. 1.75, 2, 2.25, 2.5, and you have your first multiple exposure finder. And then convert to this. Let's say save as SM4K 50 micron, 1.5 second start. And now to generate your own model as multiple exposure time finder, you could load any kind of model that you want. I'm using ameratown as example, and then set all the print settings according to what you want, especially the starting exposure time. And then slice the file, save the slice. Now open Uvtools, load the file again, click calibration, exposure time finder, and the only thing that you could set is the part margin, the gap between models. I suggest minimum 2. Forget object configuration, click pattern loaded model, click enable. I suggest to uncheck these glue bottom layers, and then click multiple exposure, set your exposure increments, set the number of model generations, okay, and then exposure time finder. Now let us wait for the software to generate the models. Okay, now the software will automatically generate this number at the bottom of your models, the height, the bottom exposure, and the normal exposure. then you could check the slice file, and then you could save by convert to and save in whatever name you want. Now you simply copy the slice file. This is what I sliced on Uvtools. Copy to your flash disk and then print on your printer. But I suggest that you do a dry print first to check if it really works on your printer, especially if your printer series is not in the software compatibility list. Okay, so that is all today, guys, for making your own multiple exposure finder. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share my video. Thank you so much.